So our next speaker is Melissa Dark. Melissa Dark has 20 years of experience in cybersecurity education. She spent the majority of her career as a professor at Purdue University, and in 2015, she started Dark Enterprises Incorporated. It's a nonprofit which advances the mission of developing, supporting, and stewarding cybersecurity education initiatives in the United States. So without further ado, I'm sorry, my alarms are going off. I will introduce Melissa Dark, and I'm going to post a link to her slide deck in our chat.
Thank you so much, Kim. It is great to be here, and I was looking through some of the attendees, and I'm happy to see Ashley. I'm happy to see Robin. Artie, it's good to see you. Nick, it's good to see you. So I am here to talk to you for just a few minutes about an initiative that I'm working on called Teach Cyber. Kim mentioned I had been in cybersecurity education for 20 years. 19 of those were as a professor at Purdue. And Purdue was one of the first 7 universities in the United States to be recognized for teaching cybersecurity and producing cybersecurity graduates that go to work many places, and certainly several of them in the intelligence community and Department of Defense. So I saw and got to be a part of watching and helping cybersecurity education grow across higher ed. And today, there are over 400 universities that have cybersecurity degree programs. Majors, minors, concentrations, everything from PhD to master's to bachelor's to associate. Now, it was around 2015 that I started to see a lot more happening in the K-12 space. And some of what's happening in the K-12 space is what I would call cyber safety education. But some of what's happening in the K-12 space is really cybersecurity education. And the difference for me is that cyber safety, I think, is fairly focused on helping students understand how to just themselves be safe when they go online. You know, how to not be a victim, or how to not be a bigger part of the problem. But I would classify cybersecurity as a little deeper knowledge where it's trying to prepare somebody to go into a career field. And the field is really quite large. It's everything from architecting and designing secure systems to protecting and defending them. Certainly offensive operations are a part of cybersecurity, but we have people who go into policy and governance, into forensics to try to investigate and reconstitute after a breach has happened. So it's a broad field. So I got pretty excited about what was happening in the K-12 space. And so I decided to retire from Purdue. Dark Enterprises is focused on design, analytics, research, and knowledge transfer. And I'm going to talk to you today about 2 design projects. So one design project came about with a partnership with the National Cryptologic Museum, and specifically the Cyber Center for Education and Innovation. It was around 2015, I was talking to a high school teacher, and they asked me a common sense and important question. What should I teach, Melissa, in my high school class so that students are adequately prepared to come to Purdue and study cybersecurity? What should I teach? And I didn't answer that question in 2015. I didn't answer it in 16, 17. But I started to think around 2018 that we were getting ready to answer that question. And the reason that I thought we were getting ready to answer that question is finally universities had an accreditation standard to accredit cybersecurity degree programs. Once we got an accreditation standard, we started to have much more continuity and standardization across our college programs. And that meant that we as a community at the post-secondary level could say to high schools as a community at the secondary level, here's what we think you should teach. Here's what an introductory dual credit or dual enrollment or placement credit course at the high school level could look like. So I worked on this curriculum design project, and I'm going to go out and show it to you quickly. It's here, it rests on the National Cryptologic Museum Foundation's website. And it's a set of high school cybersecurity curriculum guidelines. And what you're looking at here is just the landing page. It tells you about the need, how to use the guidelines, the background on the development, the structure of the guidelines. But if you actually log in, it's a quick registration. You can see the guidelines themselves. They're built around 8 big ideas. Any one of the big ideas, and I will just go into this one, data security, is structured this way. It has a paragraph, then it has essential questions, then it has enduring understandings, learning objectives, and knowledge statements. So most of, I think, what starts getting translated into curriculum that teachers can teach is at the learning objectives and knowledge statement level. But we tried to build these guidelines in a way that if you taught a course based on them, you would give students these enduring understandings and these big ideas, because when you teach that way, you're preparing them to go on and to continue to fill in the scaffold that they've built of what is important about the field of cybersecurity, where what is important, we think, are these 8 big ideas: ethics, establishing trust, ubiquitous connectivity, which is network security plus the Internet of Things, data security, system security, adversarial thinking, risks, and implications. So this is one example of a design project in cybersecurity education that I've worked on. I got lucky enough to do some teacher PD. That's how I know Nick and Robin and Ashley and Artie this summer with some teachers in Maryland. So right now we have a course that's being pilot tested in Maryland, built on these guidelines, and I'm going to show you some of the course materials in a minute. It's also being pilot tested in Texas, New Hampshire. It will also go to Hawaii next year, and probably be the year after that in New York, Indiana, California, South Dakota is what it's looking like. So going back to my slides, so sorry about that, I went back to the beginning. So the second design project that I wanted to tell you about is the Teach Cyber project. So we built the guidelines, and then we started building courseware so that somebody who wanted to teach a course based on the guidelines could have a leg up, some instructional materials. So Teach Cyber is modular curriculum. It can be used year-long. It is built to be year-long, but it could be shortened, truncated to a semester-long course, or it could be smaller. Nick is using pieces of Teach Cyber right now with a club, and it is being pilot tested this year. I've already mentioned that. We have launched the first 3 units so that any of you could have access if you would like to look at them. It is no cost. It is publicly available. It's a 508 compliant course. We call it Introduction to the Challenge of Cybersecurity, but I'm sure that it's called something slightly different at Ashley's school or at Robin's school. It is built for high school students, and the materials at Teach Cyber, if you would go to this URL, are for high school teachers. The lab exercises that we have, we firmly believe in active learning, we firmly believe in hands-on learning, and we firmly believe that students need technical experiences. So we use right now the Virginia US Cyber Range, and I wanted you to also know that registration is free for content access. Certainly you would expect, and I think I might have already mentioned, that the Teach Cyber content is based on those guidelines that I just showed you. And I'm going to go to the Teach Cyber website in just a minute, but before I do, the first 3 units are publicly available there right now. Units 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 will be released by the end of 2020. Other things that are coming, we're going to try to launch a community of practice where we have teachers who are teaching using Teach Cyber come together intermittently to talk about what works for them. We're launching a Teach Cyber Bites, which is a weekly small bite, and we'll launch this probably next week will be our first one, and it's on data breach. So you would expect a very short newsletter article that tells you what is a data breach, why does a data breach matter, why should you care about it, why should your students care about it, how does a data breach work, and then where can you find data breach taught in the Teach Cyber curriculum. We're thinking about a webinar series, we're thinking about a YouTube channel, and we're thinking very seriously about how to build assessment. You heard me mention earlier, we are interested in dual enrollment, dual credit, or placement credit opportunities. And so we're actively pursuing, trying to get grant funding to build an assessment that could be the first step towards a placement test that universities who have cybersecurity programs could administer to students who have come from schools who have had Teach Cyber programs. So I wanted to quickly go and show you the Teach Cyber website, and then I can open it up if we have time for questions. So this is the Teach Cyber website. If you register, it takes about a day to get approved. The place where I would want you to go first would be here under Teach. We have a couple of planning and pacing guides. We have some other colleagues who have built courses based on those curriculum guidelines that I've shown you. So you can see how they sequenced the curriculum guidelines to create a course. And they sequenced it in some cases differently than we have with Teach Cyber. So that planning and pacing guides might be interesting to you. If you want to dive right into the lessons, you would come here. It's taking just a minute to think. And you would come down here. If this is assuming that you're now registered. You would come down and go to the course. The first 3 units I've mentioned to you, 1, 2, and 3 are available. Before you download it, you can surf around and learn that this unit is 11 days long. This will tell you the big ideas that are covered in this unit from the guidelines, the prerequisite knowledge. And then if you want, you can download the whole unit, or you could just, if you're gonna just integrate this and you don't want the whole course, you can read the lesson learning objectives and decide, hey, I'll go ahead and I'll just take that 1 unit. So once you have downloaded a unit, what you would get would be, this is a pretty small unit. I think it's just between 1 to 4 days, but you would get a zip file. And here, this is a lesson overview. This is a presentation. This is an activity. I think the next one, yeah. What is cyberspace activity? What is a scavenger hunt activity? Here's the scavenger hunt key. So you would give the scavenger hunt activity to your students, but you would use the key. And then the what is cybersecurity activity you would give to your students, and then the key is for you. So I'm gonna stop there and see if anybody has any questions for me.
Not a question, Melissa, but it is so very well organized. You know, I mean, we were working off of Google Drive, but the website is like the source is so very well organized now.
I know, it's come a long way since you saw it in July, hasn't it? Yeah, we've been working so hard. We're very excited about it. Thank you, Artie. Can I speak to the hands-on components? I can speak to the hands-on components. So first of all, the cyber range is using virtual machines. And so there are exercise environments that are pre-built, and you deploy the exercise environment. Currently, the cyber range there's a fee for it for anybody who's outside of Virginia. It was built with Virginia money to serve Virginia teachers in schools, both at the high school level and at the post-secondary level. So people who are participating in pilot testing Teach Cyber are getting the range provided for them as a function of being a pilot tester. And if that's at all of interest to you, please get a hold of me, because we're still going to onboard a few pilot testers for the spring semester. We are going to talk with, I think I saw Lois Palin. I'm going to talk to Lois on November 24th. I know Lois and UMGC have a partnership with NetLab, and we're going to sit down and look at whether we could use some of the NetLab labs and swap them out for the cyber range. And that might be a way to bring Teach Cyber more cost effectively and seamlessly to Maryland teachers and schools. So that's in the near term plans, so stay tuned. And if you register for Teach Cyber, as we start making progress, we'll be sure to include that in the weekly Teach Cyber Bite announcements that we would send out to you. So that's one aspect of the hands-on. The other thing that I would like you to know about hands-on is, even if it's not on machines, doing labs, like a social engineering lab, a phishing lab, a SQL injection lab, a network enumeration lab. If it's not doing that, this curriculum is loaded with active learning exercises that allow students to practice and learn about concepts, not by hearing you talk about them, but by them doing it. And Robin just said absolutely. So I think she's saying, yes, she agrees that it's full of active learning. So I think, to me, that's also very hands-on.
This is Lois. I just wanted to reiterate what you said about using portions of the lesson plans. I was recently mapping your lesson, some of the first 3 lessons into some of the concepts that we taught in our Gen Cyber teachers camp, and it was really very nice to be able to pick and choose some of the lessons to focus on a particular topic. So I just wanted to reiterate that you don't have to do the whole class to really get a lot of benefit from some of the lessons.
Thank you. I really appreciate you saying that. It was tricky sometimes to try to build a course that scaffolded knowledge, right? Because you want students to get deeper and deeper knowledge as they go, but to also think about building it in a way that it could, just a little piece could be pulled out. So now we're still doing pilot testing. So at the end of the year, teachers like Ashley and Robin can tell me whether it really did scaffold and built deeper and deeper knowledge. So proof will be in the pudding. Yes, I definitely think that some of it can be incorporated into AP Computer Science principles. And I wanted to tell you that I worked on another project that specifically built materials to incorporate into computer science principles. And the reason that you might like to see it is because we took the time to map our lessons to the AP-CSP framework. So these are cybersecurity lessons that teach cybersecurity, but at the same time that they teach cybersecurity, they teach something in programming out of AP-CSP or something in, you know, algorithms out of AP-CSP.